After entering the Land of Shadows for the first time, we're quick to meet our companions and search for kindly Miquella. Among those we encounter first, we have Leda, a knight of Miquella, Freya, a warrior of Radahn, Hornsent, a man out for revenge, Sir Moore, a man who likes to find things, and Sir Ansbach, a former Pureblood Knight who's left the Mohg dynasty in order to serve a new lord. Each of these characters has their own path and motivations, but one among them seems to be the only one who understands just how dangerous Miquella truly is. Sir Ansbach may be the oldest of the troop, but his blade is unmatched, and he's seen firsthand how the hearts of men can be bent to do the bidding of an Empyrean. His quest is fairly straightforward, but it reveals a side of kindly Miquella none of our other compatriots do, while also shedding light on the tragedy of luminary Mohg, the Lord of Blood. Today we will explore Ansbach, the scholar who believes not in the strength of gods, but of men. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Elden Lore, our ongoing series where we explore the people, places, and history of those who wander the Land of Shadows. Whether this is your first time joining us for one of these lore dives, or you're a longtime subscriber, thank you for spending some time with us today. If you end up enjoying our content, please consider subscribing, as we want to explore every inch of the Land of Shadows. Speaking of, if you have any questions about the DLC, make sure to leave them in the comments so we can answer them, either with a reply or a video. We also have a Discord where our community of lore enthusiasts talk about their favorite Elden Ring characters, weapons, theories, and more. Whether you subscribe or not, your viewership is always enough for us. And with that said, let's retread the steps of Ansbach and explore what kind of man he truly is. When we first meet Ansbach, much like the rest of his troop, he's under the influence of Miquella's enchantment. He's quick to greet us and give us some background on his skill when he was a younger man.
The Tarnished. I am Ansbach, formerly in service to Lord Mohg, but now, like you, another soul guided by kindly Miquella. I'm hardly the steady hand I once was. My fighting days are far behind me, which is why I have chosen to dedicate myself to investigation, to discern tender Miquella's ultimate purpose. I'd rather not volunteer service to a new master unless I know that I can be of use.
He's quick to tell us he previously served Mohg, which is interesting considering our understanding that Mohg absconded with Miquella's cocoon, essentially kidnapping him. You would think he'd be more hesitant to admit he may have played a part in Mohg's machinations, but we'll learn more about the reason he's so forthright later. Ansbach, it seems, is searching for the crosses left behind by Miquella as he walked the land, and he's quick to turn to us for assistance.
May I request a service of you? 6 crosses identical to this one have been discovered in these lands. They are akin to tender Miquella's footprints, or gravestones, which mark what he's left behind. If you discover any more crosses, be certain to tell me. I presume you, too, are keen to know just what kind Miquella is doing here.
Whether we find these crosses for him or not will not affect our relationship with the man, but a few of these lead to interesting comments. If we find where Miquella divested himself of his eye, Ansbach will say,
I am much obliged. I can hardly believe it. He's divested himself of his very eye. Tender Miquella's eye is no mere morsel of flesh. It is a vessel of soaring grace, proof of his Empyrean lineage. I wonder, does Miquella the Kind intend to sever his very birthright, his fate as a child of the Erdtree?
This is an incredibly interesting tidbit. The idea that an Empyrean's eye is a proof of their lineage. It brings to mind the fact that Malenia was an Empyrean, but an unfit vessel, and no longer has her eyes. Eyes in general have interesting implications throughout Elden Ring, but this is a new development in our understanding of Empyreans. Ansbach will also speak on St. Trina if we find the cross where Miquella cast her away, telling us he has divested himself of even that, his adoring other self, his blossom of slumber. The use of the term his other self is important, because it reflects the way Marika spoke of Radagon, calling him her other self, and shows how Trina truly was part of Miquella and not a separate person entirely. After finding enough of these crosses for Ansbach, he will tell us.
Just tarnished. I have reasoned through my findings concerning kind Miquella's intentions, why he is here. The full picture is yet to coalesce, but we do know that he is bound for the Tower of Shadow, and that is where he intends to rise to true godhood. The Tower of Shadow houses a divine gateway. A well-kept secret it was, but the gateway was once the birthplace of a god we know all too well.
This is the first we hear of the gateway, and by his manner of speaking, we know the god he's referring to is Queen Marika herself. So it is that Ansbach is our best source of truly understanding what exactly is happening in the Land of Shadow, even after Miquella's Great Rune breaks, and we learn more about who this man truly is without his enchantment. Should we speak to him after seeing the message that the Great Rune has been broken, he tells us of his experience with Miquella before reaching the Land of Shadow.
Miquella has discarded his Great Rune. The fog that vexed my aging faculties has been lifted, and follies better left forgotten haunt me once again. Once, in an attempt to free Lord Mohg from his enchantment, I challenged tender Miquella, only to have my own heart rather artfully stolen. I knew not how weak I was. I believed that with sufficient mastery, even an Empyrean would be within reach of my blade. I could not have been more mistaken. Miquella the Kind is a monster, pure and radiant. He wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying. Righteous tarnished. Miquella the Kind makes my blood run cold. I am loath to admit it, but even at this very instant I wish to run very far away indeed.
Ansbach is forthright with us. He believed that the gods were not above men, and that his steady hand could protect his lord from Miquella's influence. But unfortunately, he was not up to the task. That said, he seems to be the only one of this group who understands the horror of Miquella's ability to change the hearts of anyone he may have use of. The armor and weapons of Sir Ansbach help us to see what kind of warrior he once was as a Pureblood Knight of Luminary Mohg. The Wise Man's mask is described as the iron mask of Sir Ansbach, giving the appearance of a quiet, wise, old bearded man, but an old fear lurks beneath, together with the cold, unflinching discipline that once honed his blade, now employed to enhance blood oath and dynastic skills. Ansbach's attire tells us the embroidered crest of the Pureblood Knights has now all but faded away. Ansbach understood that keeping his oath to his old master was not an act of logic, nor would it bear any justice, but it was for these very reasons he was unable to let go. From this we learn that this knight of a dead dynasty held fast to his oath to Mohg, for no reason other than loyalty. He would seek to honor the memory of his lord by avenging his downfall. Ansbach's longbow doesn't tell us much outside of the fact that its wielder must have extraordinary dexterity, but his scythe, the obsidian lamina, tells us a bit more. Signature weapon of the Pureblood Knight Ansbach, a viciously keen and slender scythe made for combat. The obsidian edge relies not upon trickery to fulfill its violent purpose. Through skill alone, the wielder can rip and rend through foes, sowing blossoms of red upon the battlefield. As if we needed even more confirmation of Ansbach's prowess with letting blood, we have the incantation, Furious Blade of Ansbach. Incantation of Ansbach, Pureblood Knight, produces a blood flame blade from the side of the hand, then lunges at enemies to cleave through them. Markedly different from the finesse swordplay of the dynast, this is an aggressive last resort of an incantation that gave rise to Ansbach's fearsome reputation. So we now understand that this man is not just a scholar, but he was the most fearsome warrior among Mohg's forces. While he may demean himself by focusing on his age and inability to face a demigod, Ansbach was a fearsome warrior and that should make Miquella stealing his heart all the more terrifying. From this point forward, we'll mostly be interacting with Ansbach in the specimen storehouse of the Shadowkeep, where he's poring through text, trying to figure out Miquella's true intentions.
Righteous Tarnished. It's been some time. After unburdening my soul to you, I had hoped to make a fresh start, but there was one thought I could not dislodge from my mind. So, here I am, quite unable to move on. After Lord Mohg's slaying at his dynastic palace, it appears his body has been absconded with, and taken straight to kind Miquella. Surely you recall that I once served Lord Mohg as a Pureblood Knight, after failing him in every regard, and losing sight of my vows. I'd do anything to make amends, in whatever meager way I can. What could they possibly have in mind for Lord Mohg's remains? The implications are rather unnerving.
It's during this time in the Keep that we see how Ansbach truly did care for his allies, regardless of Miquella's enchantment, as we can inform him about Freya's decision to uncover the oath made by General Radahn to Miquella sometime in the distant past.
Freya, by the gods. She must be feeling the need to reaffirm her allegiance before she heads to war. A true Redmane she is, hardly troubled by the rot, but no one is without their shortcomings. She has a hard road ahead. It does make one think. Perhaps our concerns are but two sides of the same coin.
Ansbach had no idea just how close he was to the truth, until we bring him the sacred Right Scroll. Upon seeing the contents of the scroll, Ansbach will share his thoughts.
What's this? Yes, I should have known. Even the truth was itself mere folly. As if using Lord Mohg to gain entrance to the Land of Shadow were not enough, he plans to use his corpse as the vessel of his king consort. He has forsaken Lord Mohg's soul. He desires only his empty shell. It beggars belief, but I'm afraid tender Miquella fails to grasp the humiliation implied by this act. One thing is certain. My dear lord deserved better. Righteous Tarnished. You have my gratitude. You have given me the answers I needed, but I can hardly fathom it. Such folly. Unto the end. I am a warrior, but I've aged. I cannot afford to act hastily. Curse it all. I know my limits. I could spend the rest of my life honing my craft, and still that creature would be out of my blade's reach. The absolute folly of it all.
Ansbach seems to be falling into despair, and given his past, it's hard to blame him. He has challenged Miquella before, and his blade was not enough. So how could he challenge him again and expect a different outcome? Perhaps with allies. After leaving Ansbach with his thoughts, he'll give us a letter for Freya to help her along her path for answers.
Just Tarnished. Could you please give this to Freya? Thanks to you, she too will have the answers she requires. Freya possesses a youth I no longer have. This knowledge will surely stoke the flames of valor within her. Yes. I can see her barreling into the fray right now. Perhaps I shouldn't meddle in her affairs, but this is the only way I can help.
After sharing this letter with her and hearing her intent to face him in an honorable battle, he says,
I should have expected as much from Freya. Some things simply never occur to her. Paralyzing fear. True despair. That's Freya through and through.
He takes her challenge not as the declaration of an enemy, but the proposal of a worthy warrior and friend. This is where our journey with Ansbach comes to an end, at least for a time. We have the opportunity to either join him in battle against Needle Knight Leda, or fell him by our own hand alongside her, but ignoring this battle will not affect our endgame. We don't meet with Ansbach again until we face what is left of Miquella's forces in Enir Lim. If we followed their quests, we can summon both Ansbach and Tiolye to help us in our desperate struggle against Leda and her companions. And upon winning this fight, we can speak with Ansbach one last time.
Just tarnished. That was an astounding battle, to be sure. Now I suppose this leaves only one. But in truth, I cannot calm my quivering. Challenging a god is no small matter.
If asked, he will express how impressed he is with Tiolye, as he previously did not see him as much of a warrior.
Afraid I underestimated the lad. Appearing frail in both body and mind, I presumed he'd be like to stumble upon the field of battle. What a fool I was. He serves another master, but Sir Tiolye performed magnificently. Perhaps he too quivers with anticipation, as do we.
Finally, we have the option to speak with him about Mohg, to divulge the truth, that we are the tarnished that put an end to his lord. But the Honorable Sir Ansbach reacts in a way you may not expect.
Something you want to get off your chest? Well, you needn't worry. It was you, wasn't it? Who defeated Lord Mohg. Fear not. I bear no grudge against you. His Eminence was felled in an honorable duel. And such are the risks of seeking lordship. Besides, what right have I to complain? I blame the enchantment more than anything. Righteous tarnished, we will have our victory. I swear upon my blood.
He believes that lords being felled as they try to rise above others is simply the way of things, and that if Miquella had never charmed Mohg and himself in the first place, you'd never have had to slay him. He still sees us as righteous, and wants to fight alongside us as we challenge a god. Before we enter the final confrontation, we can summon Ansbach, and he tells Radahn it's a pleasure to see him after all this time. But those remains do not belong to him. Lord Mohg will have his dignity. We can see how brilliantly Ansbach fights during this battle, but odds are he will be felled during its course. And when he is, he asks that we become the new Lord of the Lands Between, a lord not for gods, but for men. With that, Ansbach's story ends, as once the battle is over, we can find him lying dead to the side of the arena. He did what he'd set out to do, and avenged his lord. The indignity of destroying Mohg's soul so that Radahn could take his body did not stand, as Mohg's most fearsome Pureblood Knight stood for his lord against a god he had no chance of defeating. He left the future in our hands, believing we would create a better world than the gods that came before, and it's up to us to decide exactly what that new world will look like. Sir Ansbach sheds light on what the Mohgwyn dynasty may have been before the influence of Miquella. Yes, he wields blood incantations, but his demeanor stands in stark contrast to Vare, a man whose major concern was having us spill blood to slake Mohg's chambers. Ansbach sitting at Mohg's right hand makes it seem as though in the past, the bloody fingers may not have run rampant, cutting down every tarnish they could find. This man of strength and wisdom is likely a symbol of what this dynasty could have been if Miquella had never bewitched Mohg in order to put his plans for godhood into motion. Ansbach's willingness to acknowledge his own weakness and limits, while constantly seeking to improve both his mind and his blade, shows what a Pureblood Knight was truly meant to be. If only we could have seen what Luminary Mohg would have been without Miquella's influence. Though to be fair, he did still follow the Formless Mother, so it may not have been much better. Thank you for joining us for this walkthrough of the story and history of Sir Ansbach, Pureblood Knight and true companion to our Tarnished. Do you believe Ansbach led a troop of Pureblood Knights before they came to be known as the Bloody Fingers? Did he and Vare have a contentious relationship while serving Mohg? What did the Mohgwyn dynasty look like before Miquella's influence affected all of Mohg's decisions? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and set notifications to all so you never miss out on any of our lore dives. We look forward to seeing you again for more Elden Lore.